Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Diamond Report Live. This is your host, Doug Diamond. Hope you guys are doing well out there. Long time no see. It is February 1st, 2026, 9:01 p.m. And yes, we are back. We are back again. The Diamond Report Live. And I like to say it is breaking news that proves that we are living in the end times. So if you haven't heard me say that before, get used to it. No, I'm just teasing. Anyway, I hope you guys are doing all right and are safe and warm out there and have power. We do again, finally. We were out of power for about 5.5 days there due to the unnatural, artificially, chemically ice-nucleated, geoengineered ice storm that we had earlier in the week, and put basically an inch of ice over literally everything. And I had to use a jackhammer just to get into my car. It was pretty wild. So I woke up to the sound of my neighbor's trees breaking in half and branches crumbling and hitting the ground about 6 a.m. on Sunday, a week ago today. And then also I was seeing what looked like lightning strikes, but it wasn't. It was transformers bursting. So that was a lot of fun, and then our power went out. Luckily, we have a generator, so we were able to have instant power, unlike all of our neighbors. So they were all in the dark and in the cold, and we had plenty of energy in our place. And from there, we lost our internet, but otherwise, we were in pretty good shape. We had, I would say, kind of effectively like a dial-up connection, but that is way better than most people had. We had a decent download and no upload. And if you guys know what I do for a living, I upload a lot of videos and longer, bigger files and things like that. So it's kind of hard to deal with no internet connection. So I was able to do a little bit of what I normally do, work-wise from about Sunday through Thursday when it finally came back on. But it was very difficult to do anything internet-based, but I do a lot of music stuff. And sending files is internet-based, but the actual process of mixing and mastering is not. So I was okay as far as work goes, and, needless to say, most of our neighbors in the area, not necessarily immediate neighbors, but people around us, have been suffering, and if you don't mind, please keep them in your prayers. National power outages linger after ice storm hits hard, and this was dated yesterday, but there are still thousands of people in Nashville without electricity right now, and it is about 20 degrees outside, maybe 25. Winter Storm Fern battered Nashville over January 24th through 26th, snapping trees and poles in the largest NES, which is Nashville Electric Service, outage ever, with peaks at 230,000 customers affected and 21 weather deaths statewide. It was actually 300 and some thousand outages as far as customers go. 300,000, not 230. NES, as of yesterday, now reports under 50,000 outages, promising 85% restored by today, 90% by Tuesday, and 99% by February 8th, while adding an address-specific outage map after public calls for details. Yes, there's been quite a bit of outrage here. Locals like the singer John Rich and Reese Witherspoon voiced frustration over slow timelines and communications as crews from multiple states work street by street amid criticism of past tree trimming cuts. Warming centers remain open with more cold ahead. So that is what Nashville is in store for and what we've been through over the last week. It has been pretty rough for a lot of people, and I know people that just left the area entirely. Most people went to hotels if the hotels had power. I know pretty much all of our neighbors did in the area that we live. And we were out about 5.5 days, but there are people that are still with no power in the end of January and 1st of February. So that's not good. So anyway, please keep those folks in your prayers if you don't mind, and hopefully things will be restored soon. One of the things that I posted on my X account from several days ago now, which actually got quite a few views, upwards of 2,000 views, I guess, on X, we're working on day 4 of no power, no grid power. We do have a generator, so we're okay. But I just found out that the Nashville Electric Service just turned away thousands of line workers to help restore power to Nashville after this crazy geoengineered winter ice storm because NES would not pay union wages. So they're letting their customers suffer in the cold. Nice one, Nashville Electric Service. So, yeah, that was the earlier reports, and there were a lot of people saying this. I heard this, again, day 4, so that would have been about Wednesday, something like that. And there's also been, believe it or not, Nashville is a blue city, unfortunately, and we have an idiotic mayor. And there have been reports of racism. And by that, I mean the DEI hires that are in charge of things at the local level, at least in the government. I don't know about NES, but in the government, those folks decided that it was the rich, quote, rich, white, affluent communities who should get their power turned on last. And the minority communities, wherever they might be around Nashville, get their power first. So I don't have any way to report that. I'm just saying the local NBC and other mainstream media affiliates were reporting that earlier. I didn't pull up that article, but it's easy to find if you guys want to look it up. But yes, that there were actual calls of racism involved. It's really more of a DEI thing, I think. Just simply not having the right people in charge. I think that's what it is. And then this post here from singer John Rich, country singer. Nashville froze in the dark, and John Rich isn't letting the mayor hide behind PR. He's calling it straight up incompetence, and that is what it seems to be, at least to some degree. Now, granted, there were thousands and thousands and thousands of trees down all over the place. I don't know. I didn't pull up any pictures, but you can find them. They're out there, and some of the. We live not too far from a park. Some of the trees down almost look like the way they're laying over. It looks like a bomb went off. So it looks really, really bad in certain areas. And I do know of one area not too far from here that they're telling those folks that it was going to be a whole other week before power is restored. So I don't know. Anyway, I know I spent a lot of time on that, but I wanted to mention that. And along those lines, let me share this with you guys as well. This is a different little screen that I've got pulled up here, but I thought this was pretty interesting. Now, this is a guy that you'll probably recognize from, I guess, a few weeks ago because my hair was a lot shorter. Now, this was a broadcast from right there, 12/21/25. So just a few days before Christmas, right? And then let me turn off my camera right now. There we go. And what I'll do is, I know you guys can still hear me, but it won't be too confusing seeing me on here twice. But let me play this clip. This is from, again, December 21st, 2025. This is even more pronounced than it was last week. 6 to 10 day temperature outlook on the scheduled weather coming up. And Dane sent this to me the other day just to kind of prove his point that he had never, ever seen anything this radical in the U.S. before. How warm everything is. And again, they're not doing a toxic cool down at the moment. Note that Alaska is cooler. So perhaps the fleets of geoengineering planes are mostly up north at the North Pole in Alaska because it is cool up in Alaska, believe it or not. It's not super warm there, which it has been and normally is. It's warm down here where we are. So way above normal over a big chunk of the U.S. coming up December 27th through 31st. So something to keep in mind. And if you don't believe me, let's look at this one, Climate Reanalyzer. Days 1 through 3, currently, Sunday, December 21st, we're 10 degrees above normal where I am. But look at some of these other temperatures. 20 degrees above, 23 degrees above, 26 degrees above normal. And that is as of right now. And then it gets even more pronounced, though, just by about Christmas Eve. We are going to be almost 30 degrees above normal. 29 degrees where I am, and more than 30 degrees in a lot of places. That is not normal. This is what happens when they're not doing the chemical flash freezes and cool downs, because either it's gotten too far out of their control or they're elsewhere doing cool downs in other places, which is what I tend to think it probably is. And then days 7 through 10, which would be starting about the 27th, we're still going to be 17 degrees above normal. Still pretty big numbers. So it's going to be a warm one through the end of the year, looks like. And again, so stick with me on this. I've got a reason for showing this. So hang tight. It's coming up. And that's because they're, for whatever reason, choosing not to do the chemical cool downs over the course of the next few days. I don't know why. Perhaps it's resources. Perhaps they can't control everything the way they have been controlling it. Although I would imagine that at some point in January, it'll all come back again and we'll have probably colder than ever temperatures. We'll see what happens. I've not seen any weather predictions or scheduling for January yet, but I'm just guessing at some point there'll be a week or so, maybe 2 weeks in January, where it will be possibly the most brutal cold humanity has ever faced, or at least that's, maybe the way it will be billed. I don't know. But that will be whenever the fleets of, toxic cool down jets are back in the mix. Because right now, for whatever reason, they're not opting to do that. Yeah, how about that? I called it. That was over a month ago. I said they're going to have, I didn't call it the storm of the century, but that's what they were calling it around here. And if you don't believe me, I think I've got that pulled up here somewhere. Right here. A massive historic winter storm in late January 2026, often described as a storm of the century, impacted over 200 million people across 40-plus U.S. states with over 2,000 miles of snow, ice, and sub-zero temperatures. The event caused over 100 fatalities, severe power outages, and widespread travel disruptions. So, all that to say, I know what I'm talking about. That was December 21st, and it was record warm. People will forget. It was record warm. It was borderline hot. It was 70-some degrees the days before and leading up to, I think, maybe right around Christmas, maybe even through Christmas. 70 degrees here, and now it is, 20. And we had this huge winter ice storm. Fern, I think it was what it was called. At first I thought they were saying Vern, but I think it's Fern, F-E-R-N. Anyways, I just wanted to share that with you guys. I know that's kind of a lot there, but there's a lot going on, and weather-wise, man, it is off the rails big time. So I saw this and thought this was worth reporting as well, because Mr. Dane, whom I work with, always talks about chemical ice nucleation, and I know that is a proven fact because of the patents that are available, and the ingredients listed in those patents are found in the snow samples, in the air samples. So it's a proven system as far as chemical ice nucleation. But one thing I found, I ran across this a few days ago. Well, I guess it was on the 30th when it showed up in my inbox, from Dr. Mahalcia, who you guys I'm sure know of, are geoengineering magnetite nanoparticles causing ice storms, also used for cognitive, biological, and technological warfare against U.S. civilians. So I wanted to bring this up only because this is talking about ice storms and magnetite nanoparticles causing ice storms. So this is one I had never heard of before, but I remember thinking when all this was happening, we had an inch of ice on everything, and like I said, I had to use a jackhammer just to get into my car. Earlier in the week, it was really strange. What I did was, to even open up the car door, I had to take a screwdriver, right, and flip the handle part around and put the handle up against my car, and take a hammer, literally a hammer, and start tapping on the sharp end, or the flat end of the screwdriver. It wasn't a Phillips, it was a flat end, a flathead screwdriver, and breaking the ice. That's the only way you could get in. The doors were literally frozen closed. So anyway, it's a proven technology. This chemical ice nucleation thing that Dane talks about is real. There's really no question. What I had not heard of, though, was what Dr. Mahalsi is talking about here, magnetite nanoparticles causing ice storms. So this is something that I had not heard of, and I'm going to investigate further and bring this to Mr. Dane's attention. He may already know about this. I've never heard him talk about that. But it is really interesting that could be part of what's going on. At least, maybe that's how they were able to pull this one off, this storm of the century, Vern or whatever its name was. They have to give it dramatic names so that people are even more, crazed about the storms. Not that it's bad enough when it shuts your power and everything else off. But anyway, I just wanted to mention this. We'll link to this in the Substack post. But if you guys are on Substack, you can find Dr. Mahalsia on there. And this is an article from 2 days ago now. Geoengineering magnetite nanoparticles. I thought that was pretty interesting. All right, now we usually start with Hal Turner Radio Show. I'll just mention a couple things here. We have updated earlier tonight, Intel, BlackRock, Larry the Fink. BlackRock source tells Hal, after this week, nothing will be the same. So it's content for subscribers only. So that one is something you can log in and check out yourself if you guys are interested in that. And then just some of the headlines on his site that, you can log in and have a look at. And if not, then simply listen to the radio show when he broadcasts Monday through Friday. He talks about all these things, even the covert intel he will eventually talk about. So just some of the current headlines here. USS Abraham Lincoln strike group on the move. This was as of yesterday. Bahrain conducts unscheduled test of nationwide emergency alert system. Explosion destroys key Iranian sea surveillance site. Pretty wild. Talk about Russian spy satellite being destroyed in space. And electronic warfare jamming has begun west side of the Persian Gulf. That's as of a couple days ago. So anyway, there's some interesting things here in this political cartoon. I thought, unfortunately, as accurate as it is, it's sick just as much, but it makes a lot of sense. This is Gaza Beach 2030. Peter DeWitt wins the annual award for the best political cartoon in the Netherlands. I would imagine this guy that drew this cartoon, he may be hanging up by his toenails about now. I don't know. I'm not sure how censor crazy the Netherlands are, but I do know how censor crazy most of the rest of the UK is, especially Germany and England. What they used to call England, they just now call the UK. But it's Gaza Beach 2030. Look what the little kid has just discovered by digging in the sand, and he's taking it to mom and dad over there. I guess it's mom and dad. I can't tell. Yeah, that's what it looks like. He's taking a skull to him. Isn't that sick? But that unfortunately is very accurate. So yes, I would imagine that guy is probably hearing from the authorities about now. All right, now while we were out last week, the Davos meeting in Switzerland did occur, and I don't have a whole lot here, but I will point you to where there's a ton of information and really good. You can't really call them interviews; they're like chase downs. They're guys that were from Rebel News in Canada who were over at Davos. They go over there every year. And they track these people down while they're on the street, walking from place to place, and hit them up for questions. So we'll get to that here in a second. But this is one of the headlines that came out of this latest World Economic Forum meeting of the minds. Israeli philosopher Yuval, I call him Homo Harari, because he had a book a few years back called Homo Deus. Yuval Noah Harari says if religion is built from words, then AI will take over religion. Coming from someone who has no connection to the God of the universe, right? Historian Yuval Harari delivered a chilling warning at the WEF, arguing that AI is no longer a tool, but an agent that can think, manipulate and reshape society. AIs can make decisions by themselves, from legal personhood to culture and identity. Harari questions whether humanity is ready for AI dominance. He claimed that AIs can think and will dominate financial markets, courts, and churches. I don't think they can think officially yet, but that's what he's saying. Political leaders using AI to fight their wars fail to realize AI may defeat them. People may abdicate their decision-making to AI and give up critical thinking. That, unfortunately, is probably true. I think we're seeing that to some degree now. Harari said that AI will create a new financial systems that humans will not understand. He compared it to a horse that is being sold that does not grasp the meaning of coins in a trade. He said that children will be educated in a new way and that they will have more interaction with AI rather than humans. He commented that it is the biggest and scariest psychological experiment in history, and it is being conducted right now. I think he's right about that. It is being conducted, whether we like it or not. That's why I say the Diamond Report Live is breaking news that proves we are living in the end times. I think that's the case. Don't you guys? Sure seems that way. So anyway, that is the latest from Yuval Noah Homo Harari. And this is the page I mentioned a minute ago. Rebel News, these two guys in particular, they were out and about in Davos. It says every January, the world's richest and most powerful people retreat to Davos for the World Economic Forum. It's a secretive club, and we ain't in it, of oligarchs, politicians, bankers, tech bosses, and their media friends, the masters of the universe who rule over the rest of us. Yeah, and I would just add that they are unelected bureaucrats, too. The only reason that they do what they're doing is because they're rich. You know, they're controlling everything with their wealth. The mainstream media doesn't scrutinize Davos. They cheerlead it. They go as insiders, not reporters. That's why Rebel News is back on the ground in Switzerland, and the mission is underway. Since January 19th, Ezra Levant, that's this guy, and Avi Yemeni, this guy, have been scrumming the VIPs on the streets of Davos with veteran videographers Jay and Chung. The strategy is simple. Hunt for the most powerful people in the world and ask direct, uncomfortable questions on camera. Cameras are rolling. Reports are already pouring in. Here are some of the highlights from the first day of our journalistic mission, and there's some good ones. Did you guys know that Tampon Trudeau is dating Katy Perry, the singer? There they are, there together. Ezra confronts Trudeau, and Trudeau actually does talk to him. And this is Chrystia Freeland, and she actually does talk to him as well. Oftentimes, these people think that they are above being scrutinized and above being questioned, like Larry Fink, or as I call him, Larry the Fink. But yes, he was confronted as well, and just basically gave him the old talk to the hand kind of thing. He didn't answer any questions or anything because he's just above scrutiny. But anyway, I just wanted to mention that. There's a really good reports and videos embedded here. I don't know if this is the only page or not. I'm not sure. But it's rebelnews.com is where this is. So this is the 2026 World Economic Forum update. I just wanted to mention that briefly tonight, only because we missed last week, and we would have talked about that more last week when it actually happened. But it's still important because it sets the tone for the whole year, really. And you guys, I'm sure, have been following what's going on with ICE and the happenings in Minnesota in particular, amongst other places. But this was, I guess, one of many videos that have come out for people who they think they're protesting the ICE agents and Trump. Deranged nurse fired after urging poisoning and paralyzing of ICE agents. A nurse. So I guess you can forget the old oath of doing no harm. I know that's doctors, but you would think a nurse would want to do no harm as well. But I guess it doesn't count if it's an ICE agent. If it's somebody that Trump has put out on the streets, then it doesn't count. Says Melinda, a nurse at Virginia Commonwealth University Health posted a series of videos encouraging medical providers to inject ICE agents with, how do you say this? Succinylcholine, a temporary paralysis drug, and to spray poison on them. She also encouraged women to go on dates with federal agents and drug their food. Leftists who post messages encouraging violence and harm against others, especially federal agents, have failed to comprehend that they incriminate themselves. Yes, and if this was happening on the other side of the aisle, as it were, and during the Biden administration or Obama, you can bet those people would be instantly arrested and jailed. Do you think that this nurse or anyone like her will be even questioned? I mean, there might be some people that talk about what she's doing. I don't think she's going to face any scrutiny as far as a legal standpoint goes. Now, it does appear that this particular lady lost her job. So that's about all that could really happen. Kind of like all the people who were cheering when Charlie was murdered back in September. There were a lot of people that lost their jobs. Of course, we don't know how many of those people were hired back. You never hear those numbers. Lay them off for a little while and then bring them back once the heat dies down a little bit. I think that probably does happen, although there's absolutely no way to know that. Anyway, that's a need-to-know.news article. I've got a handful of articles here from the Liberty Beacon as well. Much, much more on Friday's 3 million, with an M, 3 million page Epstein release. That was a big drop. I don't know if you guys knew about this, but this happened just in the last few days. Department of Justice on Friday, they always do these things on Friday, announced the final release of 3 million pages, 180,000 images, and 2,000 videos connected to the Epstein case, according to Deputy AG Todd Blanche, who I know has been very problematic, but apparently he's involved in the release of some of this stuff, so I guess that's maybe a good thing. The department, which missed the deadline for a full release of Epstein's files of December 19th by a mile, said it was working on redactions to protect the names of the victims and witnesses. However, previous releases have contained unnecessary redactions when revealed elsewhere. Yeah, and 3 million pages probably took them quite a few days to go through. Let's see here. It says that this video has some useful commentary, which includes some tweets, which are also below. We're letting the series of tweets do the work for us here. So much of a highly consequential nature is being referred to without, of course, much public evidence presented as yet. A reminder that Executive Order 13818 against global corruption and crimes against humanity has been enforced continuously since late 2017. It's all been taken care of. We just don't know this yet. Mark Atwood, who I think is the commentary here in this video, his selection of featured image with Trump is a careful choice that contradicts some of the nonsense being said about Trump in relation to Epstein. Yeah, so anyways, one of the things that has come out here, I don't have it pulled up here, but you may have already heard it or seen it, is something I talked about several months ago on the show. Let's just say that there were some stories that two very young girls were involved with Trump. And there's no way to prove any of it other than what's in the paperwork. Like teenagers, 13, 14. And I don't really want to go into depth as far as what happened and what supposedly they did. But let's just say that is in this story. And if you were watching the Diamond Report several months ago, you may have already heard about it. So that is actually in this Epstein drop, 3 million pages that were released on Friday. So I wasn't really that surprised to see that, but I was a little bit surprised that it's already come out. So anyway, there's quite a few tweets here embedded, which, again, more and more and more of this stuff is going to keep coming out over time as people pour through it. Some recent news about Gates has come out and STDs, let's just put it that way. And, anyways, very sick people. And it says, Lutnick 2 Question mark. New Epstein files a trip to Pedo Island after he said he cut ties. So Howard Lutnick, who is on Trump's team, is apparently also involved. At least his name is in here. I'm not really sure to what degree. It says, as far as massive distractions go, the latest Epstein files release seems to be all anyone is talking about. Not only do they mix random and salacious claims called into the FBI tip line, which could have been lodged by anyone for any reason, you should assign low values to those. There are tons of new high-value details, largely exposing people for lying about their relationship with Epstein. Other claims have been debunked, such as Musk's Epstein Island vacation email, which is found nowhere in the actual release. So that's the thing. Don't necessarily believe everything you hear on this. Says we've also got a crazy 2-hour interview between Epstein and Steve Bannon, recorded months before his 2019 arrest, meaning Epstein's arrest, and a ton of other things that we need to get into, it says. Commerce Secretary and billionaire Howard Lutnick features in the new Epstein files, having once planned a trip to Epstein's private island. The trip, planned in 2012, came years after Lutnick claimed that he cut all ties with the pedophile. Yet in December of that year, Lutnick sent an email to Epstein saying that he had a group of people, including his wife and children and another family, who were visiting the Caribbean, and inquired as to where Epstein was located so they could visit for a meal. So he was just going to be in the neighborhood and wanted to have some lunch with old Epstein there. Yeah. Epstein, replying through an assistant, set up a lunch gathering. When reached for comment, Lutnick told the New York Times, "I spent 0 time with him before hanging up." So it sounds like he was a little bit mad that anyone should question him. It says Lutnick's connection to Epstein isn't a huge surprise after a 2019 Cranes investigation found that Epstein had significant links to the property next to his infamous Manhattan townhouse at 9 East 71st Street. I think that is next to Lutnick's townhouse, which there was some question in the whole 9/11 thing, too. I know that. Let's see here. I don't think this mentions it. Lutnick, now the CEO of financial services firm Cantor Fitzgerald. Yeah, so when he was working for Cantor Fitzgerald during 9/11, he just happened to take the day off, I think to spend it with his kid or something, and didn't go into the office that day. So what did he know? Good old Howie. Howard Lutnick. I'm not sure he is a good Catholic or a good Baptist. Are you? I wonder what religion he practices. I don't know. Just a question. Canada admits the CV-19 jabs have harmed thousands of people who await compensation. Thousands. Not millions, just thousands. A reminder that according to Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare study of 2011, only about 1% or less of VAXX injuries, adverse events, and deaths ever get reported. There you go. Making any official statistics woefully incomplete. Canada admits that the jabs have harmed thousands of people who await compensation. They're awaiting because they're hoping that the people will die first and then they won't have to be compensated. That's usually how these things work. It says the Canadian government will take direct control of the vaccine injury support program in April from a company that has only paid out $18 million to jab-injured Canadians. Canada's public health agency more or less admitted that the CV-19 jabs have caused harm to no less than 10,000 people, and then it must take direct control of a VAXX injury compensation program. So where do you think that'll go? I mean, at least it's out there, but I can't imagine it's going to result in very many people being paid very much money, but we'll see. Canada's not exactly real forthcoming, but no governments are they? Panama, no, not the Van Halen song. Panama boots China from the canal Victory for Trump's Monroe Doctrine revival. So I thought this was kind of interesting just because I hadn't heard anything for a long time about what was going on with the old Panama Canal. So here's an update. Panama's Supreme Court decision to force out a Chinese port operator caps the Trump administration's year-long effort to oust China from the strategic waterway. It gives a boost to Trump's effort to revive the Monroe Doctrine in the Western Hemisphere aimed at reducing Chinese influence in Latin America. The ruling comes 1 year after Trump zeroed in on Chinese influence in the country and the vital strategic waterway built by the U.S. more than a century ago. China is operating the Panama Canal, and we didn't give it to China, Trump said in his inauguration address. We gave it to Panama, and we're taking it back. Yes, I remember that. The ruling from Panama's High Court caps a year-long legal battle between the Chinese and the Panamanian governments after Chinese regulators blocked the Hong Kong-based C.K. Hutchinson Company from selling its stakes in the port of Balboa on the Pacific coast and Cristobal on the Caribbean side to an American consortium under U.S. pressure. Says first Maduro, now the Panama Canal. So anyway, look for Trump to be claiming victory here. Maybe he already has. I don't know. I have not heard that. But pretty interesting. And yes, obviously the U.S. needs Panama Canal back and not the Chinese. They should not be running things. All right. Technocracy.news. The fatal limits of the technocrat class. Now, this is one of those articles on technocracy.news that if you go to it and you want to hear more than just what I'm going to read here, you can click the listen to this article now button and it will play you, I think, the full article because it's saying 7 minutes. I'm pretty sure it won't take me 7 minutes to read these like less than 100 words. The technocrats' answer, here you can time me now, start now. The technocrats' answer for any problem is technology, i.e., there's an app for that. When their technocratic solution fails, they will say they didn't have enough data in the first place. So the answer is obviously more technology and collecting more data. There is never an analog solution to any problem. The mechanistic worldview of technocracy traps the technocrats in a closed-circuit loop. So that's all that's on this article at the moment because these articles, after they post them, after a few days, they go behind a paywall. And I'm not a subscriber, but I do know that they have some really good articles on the site. However, for whatever reason, it looks to me like the full article is available by clicking the listen button here. If you don't want to hear the whole thing, it appears that is the full article. Although you can't read the words, you'll be able to hear it at least if you want to. As people are culling through all of these millions and millions of pages and thousands of images and so forth, people are finding some really interesting things. This is one of them, and I don't know what to make of it other than there's a weird connection here. New York City's new mayor, Zohran Mamdani's mother, was named in the latest Epstein files. And people are postulating that Zohran Mamdani is actually a child of Jeffrey Epstein. Can you believe that? I don't think I believe that, but there are people out there that are actually postulating that already. And who knows? Maybe it's true, but I kind of doubt it. Says the mother of New York Mayor Zohran Mamdani, filmmaker Mira Nair attended a party hosted by Ghislaine Maxwell, according to the just-released trove of documents linked to so-called deceased serial abuser Epstein. So, I don't know. But there's some weird connections. And old Mamdani is already involved, apparently. All right, and then I thought this one was kind of funny. Not ha-ha funny, but just like, well, this is obvious. This is a WorldNet Daily article. Watchdog alleges Netflix coordinated with the FBI to promote left-wing narratives. Yeah. In other news, the Sun also came up today, just like it did the day before. I'm sure that's a big story somewhere. But yes, Netflix coordinating with the FBI to promote left-wing narratives. But I guess it is new news to some people. Company appears to have an outsized role in socially engineering millions of Americans into a predisposition to accept preferred left-wing ideological dogma. A new report alleges that the streaming giant Netflix has worked closely with federal law enforcement and intelligence agencies in ways that amount to government-assisted propaganda. Yes. A report released Tuesday by the Oversight Project, a government watchdog group, contends that the FBI, the CIA, and the Defense Department, now the War Department, exercise influence over film and television productions, particularly those distributed by Netflix. Based on all publicly available evidence and analysis, Netflix appears to have an outsized role in socially engineering millions of Americans into a predisposition to accept preferred left-wing ideological dogma, the Oversight Project reports states. Yeah. So, yes. Total surprise. I know you probably would never suspect that Netflix might do something like that. Yep. All right. And then let's see here. Yeah. Blaze Media. Democrats panic at the sight of Tulsi Gabbard at FBI raid of Fulton County election office. So, yes, this is an interesting new wrinkle to the 2020 election scandal that has just come out in the last few days. Gabbard vexed establishmentarians last year by blowing the lid off the Russian collusion hoax. Now she's looking at the 2020 election. The FBI raided the Fulton County, Georgia elections office on Wednesday as part of an apparent investigation into possible violations of federal laws related to the preservation of election records and intimidation or defrauding of voters. Georgia Senators Warnock and Ossoff were among the Democrats who rushed to condemn the raid, which took place just days after Trump stated that the 2020 U.S. presidential election was a rigged election and people will soon be prosecuted for what they did. The U.S. election can never, ever be rigged again. Yeah, well, they will rig it anyway and every way they possibly can, no matter what. But at least it looks to me like Tulsi Gabbard is trying to do something about it. Unlike Pam Bondi and Kash Patel and some of these other people not doing their jobs. She seems like she is trying to get something done. So who knows? But I just wanted to point that out. If you guys weren't aware of that, that did happen earlier in the week. And important thing to keep an eye on. That's something that Trump has been talking about for a long time. And he's right. You know, the 2020 election was rigged. So this has also been a big story this week. CNN Navarro calls Alex Pretty the perfect guy she'd want her daughter to date before a new disturbing video surfaces. Yeah, so this Alex Pretty person who was killed by, this says Border Patrol agents. I don't know if it's Border Patrol or ICE, or I'm not sure if that's the same thing or what, but yeah, she did say this, Anna Navarro, last night on CNN. This is like the perfect guy. Alex Pretty is the guy you would want to date your daughter, the guy that you would want your son to grow up to be like. Or maybe not. Maybe not. Yeah, and then there's a violent video here of him yelling, "Assault me, MFer," Alex Pretty on January 13th, trying to get injured by federal officers. Let me play this, although I'm going to mute it because of the language. This is a family show, you know. However, you can kind of get the idea of how violent this guy actually is. So he's yelling at him and spitting at him and stuff here in a second. There's the officers here. This is clearly him. I think 11 days before he was shot. This is January 13th. So here he is, and he's going to kick the back of the vehicle, and he actually, you don't see it in this angle, but he knocks the taillight out of the back of the vehicle. And then they come and grab him and wrestle him to the ground, essentially. So yes, the girl from CNN here thinks he's the perfect guy, which makes sense. And I came across this and thought, well, this is exactly what the mainstream media does. MSNBC thought Alex Pretty was too ugly to be martyred, so they face-tuned him. Alex Pretty broke a rib in violent confrontation with ICE just days before he was shot in Minneapolis. So that footage we just watched, they wrestle him to the ground. I don't know if that's when his rib was broken or not, but they hit him pretty hard after he kicked the taillight out of the back of the car and was spitting all over him and stuff. Remember, he's a perfect guy. Well, clearly, the picture on the left, which is what he really looks like, MSNBC thought he was too ugly to be martyred, so they face-tuned him. So the AI edit is right next to that. This is the one that they put out, calling him Alex Pretty when this is actually the guy. So isn't that nice? Yeah. And that's not Photoshop work. That is throwing it into AI and having it tweak it and spit out a new image. So how about that for honest journalism? Yeah. And then, I don't know if you guys noticed, but I did right away, that this guy's name was Pretty. And the lady who was killed, the woman who was killed by the officer shooting through her windshield, her name was Good. So yes, now we have Pretty Good. What does that mean? Pretty Good. Alex Pretty psyop. Was it AI or was it staged? New evidence shows Minnesota man acting violent with ICE agents weeks before the fatal shooting. I've seen this video. It does not look like AI video at all. I would say it's 100% real, personally. But what do I know? So here's the footage here. Here, let me mute this. Oh, actually, that's just a still image.
This is a moment the news movement.
Here we go. So yeah, this is where he kicks the tail light out. See him spitting on the truck. That is not AI. That's real. Boom. He kicks it again. Boom. And blasts it. And there was a piece of tape on it already, so it had already been knocked out, it looked like. Now here they grab him and wrestle him to the ground. I don't know if this is where his rib gets broken or what. No way to know. But yes, he's the perfect guy you'd want your daughter to marry. Perfect example of a fine, upstanding citizen. Spitting on police officers in their vehicles and kicking out taillights and so forth. But yes, he did not deserve to be shot. I'm not saying that he did. I'm just saying that perhaps he wasn't the perfect person that we were all told he was. Just a thought. Anyways, pretty wild. But yeah, that information's out there. That one's on the Wine Press Substack, actually, is where that was. Outrage. Biden appointed judge blocks the death penalty for Luigi. United Healthcare CEO assassin Luigi Mangione. Federal judge appointed by Biden formally blocked prosecutors from seeking the death penalty against Luigi Mangione, the man accused of the cold-blooded execution of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. U.S. District Judge Margaret Garnett, who was nominated by Biden in 2023, dismissed the federal murder charge that would have allowed for capital punishment. How about that? Just like that. Mangione, 27, is accused of traveling across state lines, stalking a complete stranger, and executing the victim. So yeah, this judge just said, nope, he's not going to be murdered, and he's not going to even be charged with it. Just like that. So those Soros judges can do wonders when they're on your side, right? Sure seems that way to me. Anyway, that's a Gateway Pundit article. And then this one I thought was weird. Gavin Newsom gets dragged for pledging to send winter storm resources to Tennessee while fire victims in California remain homeless. Governor Gavin Newsom recently bragged on Twitter/X that he is sending aid to the state of Tennessee following the harsh winter storm. Gee, thanks, Gavin. Meanwhile, thousands of victims of the California wildfires that happened over a year ago remain homeless. This is Newsom, as I say, playing pretend. In his mind, he's already the president of the United States, and he wants everyone to get used to that idea. I'm looking to see what he says he's going to do. Whatever it is, it's a total lie, and he's only doing it to put it out there in social media and get the stories written about it, knowing that no one will actually follow up and see what he did, if anything. And then Robbie Starbuck is a guy that I follow on X. I'm not sure if you guys have heard of him, but he's He does good work. He is actually here in Nashville as well. I just spoke with Governor Bill Lee and his team about this. They have had zero communication with Gavin Newsom, and this appears to be nothing more than a cheap political posturing for 2028 on the backs of the storm victims. Well, what did I just say? I just said that. Yep, not that surprising. So Newsom does it again. That is a Gateway Pundit article. Amy Klobuchar, running for governor of Minnesota, will appoint Tim Walz to her vacant Senate seat. How about that? Her vacant Senate seat. If she wins, Democrat Senator Amy Klobuchar is running for governor in Minnesota to succeed Tim Walz. It's not a rumor. This has been widely reported. Yes, and she's running against Mike Lindell, the My Pillow guy. I'm not sure who else is running for governor, but I do know he's running as well. Senator Klobuchar on Thursday officially threw her hat into the ring to run for governor. And she says she's going to appoint Tim Walz to her Senate seat. How about that? Reason right there to not vote for her if you needed more than one. Anyway, thought that was really not that surprising. This is the type of things that these crazy leftist type people do. And I thought this one was weird. That's why I pulled it up. I wanted to see what it was about. Return to the moon. Artemis 2 historic crew lunar mission delayed 48 hours due to extreme cold. Set to take off on February 8th. Yeah, maybe that's extreme cold in Florida. I'm not sure if that's where it's... Yeah, Kennedy Space Center in Florida. That's why it is really cold down there. Again, chemical ice nucleation. Geoengineering going on. But it says the return of U.S. astronauts to the moon orbit is easily the most overlooked contemporary event. Ever since 1972, no human being has been to the moon surface or its orbit, but now the Trump administration is gearing up for a historic return. You think that's true? I certainly do not. How are they going to get through the radiation belt, the Van Allen radiation belt? The Artemis 2 will take American astronauts back to the moon, and a first mission to orbit our satellite will take off in less than 10 days. The mission was today bumped 2 days ahead because of the inclement weather in Florida. NASA delayed the fueling test for the Artemis moon rocket to Monday, and that pushed the historic launch back to no later than February 8th. So I'm sorry, you guys. I don't think this is actually going to happen. So is this going to be more NASA nonsense? Because NASA has already said many times that they don't have the technology to get back to the moon. So what are they doing? It looks just like it's a movie. Maybe it's going to be a movie. Again, it was a movie the first time around. Total nonsense. And what will happen? Will they let them get into low Earth orbit and then show us the movie that they've already produced? Is that what's going to happen? I tend to think that's probably more or less what's going to happen. But we'll see. I didn't even realize they were doing that. That's pretty wild. Clinton contempt vote set for next week. Will justice be served? Bill and Hillary's fate for ignoring congressional subpoenas is now in the hands of the House of Representatives. House Republican leaders plan to vote this coming Wednesday on contempt of Congress resolutions against the former first couple who refused to answer subpoenas by the House Oversight Committee regarding their dealings with Epstein. Yeah. The Rules Committee will meet at 4 p.m. Monday to consider the resolutions for the floor. Several Democrats in the Oversight Committee joined with Republicans to support advancing the resolutions to the House floor, particularly regarding the former president, who used Epstein's infamous Lolita Express private jet for a philanthropic tour of Asia and Africa after his presidency. Yeah, I think he was on the plane like 20-some times, according to logs. 9 Democrats joined all the Republicans on the committee in advancing the resolution to a 34-9 vote. So maybe something will come out of this. I mean, I don't know. I'm not going to hold my breath for sure, but you got Democrats defending the Clintons here, of course. That's what they do. So it looks like that's coming up this week, so we'll have to report back next week and see what comes of that. My guess is something will happen and the Clintons will do no time. Because why would they? They're above the law, as we all know. U.S. government shuts down for a second time in 4 months. This is dated yesterday. Multiple federal agencies remain without funding as Democratic lawmakers are demanding major reforms to immigration enforcement. U.S. federal government has entered a partial shutdown, the second such instance since last October, amid a bitter deadlock between Dems and Republicans over immigration. Yeah, of course. Starting early Saturday, Department of War, Education, Health and Human Services, Homeland Security, Housing and Urban Development, Labor, State, Transportation, and Treasury have been left without federal funding. But not the IRS. That's too bad. $1.2 trillion funding package hit a snag in the wake of deadly incidents in which ICE agents fatally shot pretty good during a crackdown on illegals. Pretty good. Not saying it really is good, but I mean, it's pretty good. I don't understand how it can be pretty and good. Just a coincidence, I guess. Anyways, yeah, so the government's shut down, and my guess is no one will even notice. It would be nice to leave it shut down, in my opinion. Zelensky hints at staying in power. Ukrainian leader has floated another presidential run, although martial law continues to block a vote. So that's a little problem. Currently, he's a dictator, but he's floating the idea of another presidential run. Yeah. Vladimir Zelensky, I think it's Volodymyr Zelensky, has suggested he may seek another term as president because he hasn't killed all of the fighting age and older people in his country yet. While his government has moved to extend martial law and general mobilization for another 3 months, again preventing national elections. Yeah, he says that as long as we're at war, we can't have an election. It's just not safe, which makes him a dictator. We're working on 2 years. It'll be 2 years in May. So, yep. Anyway, good old Volodymyr. The expert piano player. And you know what I mean. Let's see. Amazon to axe thousands more jobs. A plan to cut 16,000 employees marks the second phase of a restructuring push, driven in particular by the company's new focus on AI. We'll cut about 16,000 jobs in a second round of layoffs, linked to a restructuring driven by its focus on AI. First round of layoffs took place in October, affected 14,000 employees. Combined with 2 rounds, will amount to roughly 10% of the company's office workforce. Wow. So they're going AI even more. Although the roughly 30,000 jobs cut across the 2 rounds account for just under 2% of the tech giant's total workforce of about 1.58 million, the layoffs mark the largest downsizing of the company's history, surpassing the 2022-23 cuts that eliminated 27,000 positions. Yeah, this is closer to 30. Well, I mean, it is 30, 16 and 14. So, yeah, it says since 2024, the tech giant has committed about $40 billion to 4 data center projects in the U.S. as it builds up infrastructure to compete with OpenAI, Google, Microsoft, Meta, and others. So, laying off people from Amazon for AI. And know that work will still have to get done. It won't just be done by robotics. It'll be done by AI instead. So, pretty crazy. I don't know if those were mostly blue-collar jobs or white-collar jobs. So, again, with the Epstein stuff, British PM calls on ex-Prince Andrew to testify over Epstein links. I thought he was totally innocent. So, again, these are more pictures that have come out here. The former royal was again featured in newly released files linked to Epstein. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer has called on formerly Prince Andrew, to testify before the U.S. Congress after the former royal was featured extensively in the latest tranche of Epstein files released. So again, will this somehow come back to reflect on his brother, King Charles III? I don't know. It could. Given the fact that Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister of the UK, is the right-hand man of King Charles, that Charles most likely told Starmer to tell old Andrew that he needs to go right this wrong before it reflects badly on him, meaning on Charles. Anyway, yeah, there's pictures of him with this girl who they've blacked out her face, but we can tell what he's up to. He's not exactly giving her CPR. I'm pretty sure. Anyway, yeah. So I don't know. I'm not sure if this is going to reflect poorly, even more so on the old king or not. But that's the only reason I brought this up. Not that I care about Andrew that much. I don't. It's just a matter of how will people treat Charles about this, because you guys know what I am expecting to happen to Charles soon, and I don't know if it'll be related to his brother or not. So we'll have to keep an eye on that one. Headline USA exclusive. FBI informant said Trump is compromised by Israel. Headline USA knows the informant's identity. Well, I think we already knew that, didn't we? As far as the first part goes, Justice Department has released 3 million new Epstein files. Among these documents, explosive allegation from FBI informant that Donald Trump is compromised by Israel. No kidding. Headline USA can reveal the FBI informant's identity. Charles Johnson, a controversial figure with a long history in the right-wing movement. Though the report in Epstein files is redacted, Headline USA has independently obtained a separate FBI report featuring allegations made by Charles Johnson, when he was an FBI informant. The two reports are from the same field office, contain similar details, and have the same source ID number. How about that? So I think he's probably right about this. The FBI informant who made the allegation against Trump that he's compromised by Israel. Again, did the sun come up today? I think that's kind of a given. Pretty wild. But at least, maybe there'll be a few people that will be woken up by that. Yeah, the whole Zionist thing is the right side of the aisle's version of BLM. You have to be part of Zionism. Just like on the left side, you have to be part of Black Lives Matter. Same difference. All right, information liberation. Let's see, there have been a few new articles since I was here last, being how we missed last week. We'll just go over the headlines, I guess. I guess we would start with this one. Israeli-American Council asks Miriam Adelson and Haim Saban, I guess, how they control U.S. politicians. Mark Levin urges Trump to strike Iran and kill the Ayatollah and his family. How about that? Isn't that nice? Mark Levin, the peacemaker, or not. New TikTok CEO told the World Jewish Congress how they censored criticism of Zionists. Video appears to show Alex Pretty spit at ICE, kick the taillight out of ICE vehicle in prior confrontation. Yes, but he's the perfect person. We already know this. Trump expected to pick Kevin Warsh, son-in-law of Zionist billionaire Ron Lauder, as the Fed chair. So that's coming up as a new announcement here pretty soon. New Fed chair. Kevin Warsh, W-A-R-S-H. No, that's not Wash, W-A-S-H. That is how you say wash, though, in Indiana. I should know. I grew up there. If you're in Indiana, it's not Wash, it's Warsh. So, pretty interesting. The new Fed chair may do exactly what Trump actually wants. The last guy sure has not done that. U.S. approves major new arms sales to Israel worth $6.67 billion, and to Saudi Arabia worth $9 billion. It's not $6.66 billion. No, that would look too suspicious. Approving $6.66 billion to Israel. So it's 6.67. They just rounded up. Doesn't seem suspicious whatsoever, does it? I just wanted to show you that just because of the number, really, more than anything. Total ridiculousness. All right, and then Slay News article, Bill Gates panics over latest Epstein files. Completely false, he says. There's emails going back and forth between them, and he says, no, they're false. They're a lie. Massive new release of DOJ records tied to Epstein is sending shockwaves through elite circles. Billionaire Gates appears to be scrambling after being directly implicated. Yeah. Slay News previously reported millions of pages released Friday include emails in which Epstein makes salacious claims that Gates begged him, meaning Epstein, to obtain antibiotics so he could secretly dose his wife to conceal sexually transmitted diseases he allegedly contracted from Russian girls. How about that? Lovely. Way to go, Bill Gates. According to the DOJ released files, Epstein discussed helping Gates obtain drugs in order to deal with consequences of sex with Russian girls, as well as facilitating illicit relationships with married women. Melinda Gates. Yeah, she did state when she was leaving him that she was leaving him because of the whole Epstein thing. So I think we now know why, at least to some degree. Melinda Gates seems pretty evil too, just from what I've seen of her. But old Bill is, I think he's kind of wronged her a bit. It looks like pretty weird that he would need Epstein to get him antibiotics. What's that about? I mean, he's one of the richest people out there. Why would he need Epstein to do that? I don't know. All right, the whole Charlie Kirk thing and Erica Kirk just keeps getting weirder and weirder. Came across this today. Just thought I would mention it. Erica Kirk's thirst for fame exposed. Charlie's widow looks unrecognizable in resurfaced Amazing Race audition tape. Yeah, she doesn't look unrecognizable. That is her. At age 25, from 2014, with her then boyfriend, baseball player. And they're loving it up here on this audition tape. So this was an audition tape that has surfaced when she was trying to get on this TV show, The Amazing Race. Erica swapped her usual trad wife look for something completely different in a resurfaced audition tape. Well, she hadn't gotten there yet, so I don't really agree with that. But Charlie Kirk's widow appeared in 2014 video alongside her then boyfriend, JT Massey, as they listed off the reasons why they should be on the travel competition show. Erica says SEX sells. She did say that. So this is, I don't know, maybe 14-minute clip or something. Anyway, she was really kind of like all over him. So I don't know. It looks a little weird knowing that the two of them were together and have a couple kids. But, this whole story just gets weirder and weirder. I don't know what to make of it other than I find that she is not telling the truth, and she does seem to be all about the money to a degree, at least, but definitely all about the attention. And this came out this week as well, leaked on Candace Owens' show. Erica Kirk on a leaked call 11 days after Charlie died. But she's talking about merch sales and the donations that they've taken in. Yep, I've heard it. It's pretty telling. I mean, while it is something that you could definitely imagine a CEO talking to his group of employees about, his or her, the fact that it is her talking and that Charlie had just died 11 days before this is really quite odd. and very disturbing. I'm not sure who would actually be able to do that, but she was kind of giggling it up here and there. 11 days after Charlie was murdered. So, but I'll link to that. It is a separate Rumble recording there. I'll link to that in the Substack post that I put out. So make sure you're on that list. Solari report. Fast approaching digital control grid. A checklist of Trump administration actions to date. Pretty interesting cartoon here. Catherine Austin Fitz says a complete re-engineering of the U.S. government through the digital systems is now possible at high speed. This is a dynamic checklist first published on April 16, 2025. As new developments arise, we are adding them to the checklist, noting the date of their addition. Let's see what we have here. So, yeah, these are different articles that are linked to. And you can see there's a lot here. These are just some of the things that have been added by the Trump administration to do exactly what she's talking about. Look how many there are. And it's all linked. It's all linked. So it's not just made up here. Goes down to what? Most recent things were from October last year. Looks like globalist networking, grift, the great poisoning, domestic militarization, lawlessness, and end-to-end surveillance, tariffs and budget, energy, and it just goes on and on. There's so much stuff here. So this is one of those things that you can show to Trump supporters if you want, that, you know, you can say, well, Trump is building the digital control grid, whether you like it or not. You don't have to believe it, but here, it's all right here on this article. So yes, so well done, Catherine Austin Fitz, I think. Digital control grid is an electronic network of digital telecommunication information systems that allow individuals to be surveilled, tracked, and made subject to invasive controls applied to their financial transactions and resource use such as electricity, food, water, transportation, compromising, if not ending, all human rights and liberties. Control grids operate with significant data collection in AI to apply social credit systems that can be dictated on a highly centralized basis. A digital control grid ends financial freedom, replacing markets with technocracy, a system run by rules created and maintained centrally by experts. Is the Trump administration building a digital control grid? ? We provide the following checklist to assess the steps and the administration is and is not taking in a variety of areas to facilitate a rapid control grid build-out. And it says we invite subscribers to post suggestions in the comments below. So it goes through them one by one by one. So I just wanted to mention that Solari report, Solari.com is where that is, but that is a ongoing article, I guess, that she's just adding to as the Trump people add more control grid mechanisms in place. TechCrunch.com. I thought this one was weird. Apple buys Israeli startup called Q.ai. How about that for a name? The letter Q.ai as the AI race heats up. So what do they do, I wonder? Well, it says it was reported in Reuters, Apple has acquired Q.ai, an Israeli startup specializing in imaging and machine learning, particularly technologies that enable devices to interpret whispered speech and enhance audio in noisy environments. Whispered speech. It's going to interpret whispered speech. But there's probably nothing to it. Probably making nothing out of it. But, you know, I'm sure it's my imagination. But yeah, TechCrunch is saying that Q.ai, an Israeli startup company, has now came up with this device or system using machine learning to interpret whispered speech. I'm sure that's totally fine, and I'm sure it's going to be 100% accurate. More craziness, huh? And then let's see here. This is a another X post here. Oh yeah, this is another weird Epstein thing that's come out. Again, 3 million pages. We're going to be finding out some weird, crazy stuff. Well, this is another one. Male Epstein victim was allegedly RAPED'd, male Epstein victim, by President Bush and witnessed a baby being dismembered. Yeah. So I guess this male Epstein victim, there's two different things here. So here is here's the documentation. This is interview a purported Epstein victim. I'm looking to see if, of course, they blocked out names. Thanks. Says, I didn't realize Bush RAPED'd him too. I guess this is probably Daddy Bush, not W, I'm guessing. But I don't know. So anyways, it just gets crazier and crazier, doesn't it? Here's the other part of that same article. Being RAPED'd by Epstein and Clinton. He was heavy drug use. So, this poor person has really been through the fire here. But yeah, so those are some of the documents that are coming out, and people are digging through little by little. That is some crazy stuff. Very sick. What it means to die for what you believe when faith becomes more valuable than life itself. Talking about Simon the Zealot, who was sawed in half for his faith, says, is your belief strong enough to face that? There's a question that separates people who talk about their beliefs from people who actually have them. What would you die for? Not what cause would you support, not what principle sounds noble at a dinner party, not what position you'd argue for online. What truth have you encountered so completely that you'd choose torture over betraying it? Most of us will never answer that question because we've spent our lives avoiding it, arranging our comfortable existence so we're never forced to choose between our convictions and our survival. But some people have answered it. The apostles of Christ answered it when they were boiled in oil, flayed alive, crucified upside down, and dragged through streets by horses until they died. They answered it not because they were religious fanatics divorced from reality, but because they had seen something so real that denying it became impossible, even when denial meant living. And whether you're a Christian reading this for encouragement or a secular person fighting against corruption, injustice, or evil in a world that punishes truth-tellers, for example, their example matters for the same reason. Real power protects itself violently, and if you're going to stand against it, you need to understand what it looks like when belief becomes stronger than the fear of death. Because that's the only thing that's ever actually changed anything. So how about that? And then it talks about how did the 12 apostles die. So here they are here. Peter was crucified upside down. Matthew was beheaded or stabbed. Andrew was crucified on an X-shaped cross. Thomas was pierced with a spear. James was beheaded. The other James was clubbed to death. John died of old age. Simon was sawn in half. Philip was crucified. Jude was beheaded or clubbed to death. And then Bartholomew was skinned alive and then beheaded. And Judas, of course, suicide. So, wow. I don't think I knew that about these other, the way these other apostles died. You hear about Peter, of course, but many of the others I did not know about. So I just wanted to mention that. That's a Wise Wolf post. The wisewolf.club is where that is, but it's also on their Substack, which is certainly worth following, I think. And here is one more from the same folks. Stop doom scrolling and look at what Musk is doing to Memphis right now. Memphis is just the beginning. Big tech is building thousands more. Says the year's 2030, Musk and a handful of other Silicon Valley trillionaires have built thousands of data centers across the globe. These facilities consume so much electricity that the existing power grid couldn't keep up. Thousands of methane turbines and nuclear power plants had to be constructed just to keep the servers humming. Your power bill has tripled. Your water tastes like chemicals. The air in most cities is barely breathable without filtration masks. And what are these data centers doing with all this power? They are training AI chatbots to generate edgy jokes. They are building robot sex dolls with emotional intelligence. They are creating autonomous weapons to maintain the peace, which is a polite way of saying crush dissent before it can organize. They are turning the beautiful planet into a giant buzzing machine, so billionaires can feel like gods, because no amount of money or power is ever enough for men whose egos exist in inverse proportion to their humanity. We could have stopped this. We should have stopped this. But we sat back and did nothing while the technocrats took over, and now Earth looks less like a garden and more like the dystopian hellscape from Blade Runner. Except Blade Runner had better aesthetics. Except this is not science fiction. So there is further information here going into what's happening in the Memphis area. The Boxtown neighborhood. Talking about the massive data center being built there. Anyway, that is not good.
Did some reconnaissance on the ground, speaking to an organization there that's gearing up for resistance and protest. I can't tell you exactly what they're doing, but it's called Operation Pull Up. Tell us why you're doing this.
This is Operation Pull Up, more of a clandestine operation. We show up somewhere that is a key location. They don't expect us to come there, and then we disrupt business as usual.
The 1994 Clinton-era FACE Act, meant to shield abortion mills from verifiable threats, got weaponized overnight when a pack of anti-ICE radicals, egged on and live-streamed by CNN has-been Don Lemon.
This is the beginning of what's going to happen here. When you violate people's due process, when you pull people off the street, you start dragging them and hurting them and not abiding by the Constitution, when you start doing all of that, people get upset and angry. And if you remember what the civil rights movement was about.
As you can see, all these pretend Christians, all these comfortable white people who are living lavish, comfortable lives while children are dragged into concentration camps.
These clowns barged in mid-service, falsely claiming some pastor doubled as an ICE honcho, scaring kids to tears, emptying pews, and forcing the whole congregation to scatter in distress.
Renee good! Renee good!
All while Lemon played director, camera rolling, smugly defending the chaos as First Amendment theater, and whining that disruption is just what protesting is about.
Watch this guy here, look, he's hugging his kid. And, you know, I imagine it's uncomfortable and traumatic for the people here, but that's what protesting is about. And so you heard what some of the folks said in there. You know, that this is, they shouldn't be there, and, you know, they shouldn't be uncomfortable, and this is our house and whatever. That's what protesting is about, is to make people uncomfortable. You may not like it. It's called journalism. First Amendment, all that stuff. For all of you people who believe in the First Amendment, absolutist, there you go. So why don't you talk to the actual person who is in charge of the organization and whose idea it was to have the protests at the church, before you start blaming me for stuff for which you have no idea.
How would you feel if I went to your house and I started yelling?
It depends on what I did, but not in my house. That's a whole different thing. I think these people would go inside of anybody's house.
This is a house of God.
But Don, how is it that you defend yourself with First Amendment protections while simultaneously prohibiting the free exercise thereof of an establishment of religion, a violation of the very same amendment?
What do you think of this?
I mean, this is unacceptable. It's shameful. It's shameful to interrupt a public gathering of Christians in worship. So,
But there were folks who will say,
I have to take care of my flock.
okay, but listen, we live in there's a Constitution and the First Amendment to freedom of speech and freedom to assemble and protest.
We're here to worship. We're here to worship Jesus because that's the hope of these cities. That's the hope of the world is Jesus Christ.
I want to be very respectful. Please don't push me, though.
We're here to worship Jesus. Yes. That's why we're here.
The FACE Act explicitly bans using force, threats, or physical obstruction to intimidate or interfere with people exercising their religious freedom at a place of worship, an act the Biden administration used to prosecute at least 25 FACE Act cases involving roughly 60 defendants. These cases accounted for roughly 24% of all FACE Act prosecutions in the law's 30-year history up to that point.
Take, for example, one of our witnesses here today, Paul Vaughn, who was prosecuted for praying outside of an abortion clinic. Vaughn was arrested when an FBI SWAT team raided his home at gunpoint early in the morning in front of his wife and 11 children, later sentencing him to 6 months of home confinement and 3 years of probation. Another FACE Act defendant, Lauren Handy, was sentenced to 57 months in prison for her role in protesting late-term abortion within our nation's capital. And I would note, this happens to be an individual that I don't always align with philosophically. In another grotesque prosecution, the weaponized Biden-Harris Justice Department recently sentenced a 75-year-old grandmother, Paulette Harlow, to a 24-month federal prison sentence. And again, in the case of Eva Idle, an 89-year-old, I repeat, 89-year-old death camp survivor who is awaiting federal sentencing for her peaceful advocacy for praying for the unborn at abortion clinics, where prison time could be a potential death sentence given her age. And she is a survivor of concentration camps and abuse in Europe.
We will pursue charges in this case. I see various crimes that have occurred. Exactly what they are, I'm not going to flag, but the FACE Act has been mentioned as one of the predicates there. In other cases, the Biden DOJ used the Klan Act conspiracy charges tacked on to the FACE Act in the case of protests outside abortion clinics to bring much longer sentences. So there are a number of tools available to us.
Now the DOJ's Civil Rights Division under Harmeet Dillon is sniffing around potential violations. And good, because if this had been the other way around, the media would be screaming religious insurrection 24/7. Instead, we get this pathetic vulture gaslighting from the sidelines like it's just spicy activism.
I think I could actually be sympathetic to some of the things where there have been challenges to and decency. At the same time, these are what are called targeted interventions by ICE to keep the American people safe.
If I respectfully may interject here, I've been out reporting on a lot of these, and they're not targeted. There are no warrants signed by a judge. Let me finish. And they're American citizens, many of them. Most of the people that they detain don't have criminal convictions or criminal records.
I'm not going to get into the weeds.
But you should know that, though. Don't you think that's part of it?
Yes, and I could also show you many opposing sides where we're also picking up the very criminals that have put Americans in danger. And I'm not saying it's pretty. I'm not saying it's not messy. I'm not saying it couldn't be better. I'm saying this is a part of a much larger dialogue in which one administration caused a great deal of chaos and havoc and danger for American citizens, and another is trying to correct that.
Do you believe that? Why honestly,
okay.
Let me talk to you just on the facts.
Yes,
I am. I want to give you the...
And if we magically start taking our laws seriously, Lemon and Company could face a $10,000 fine and 6 months in the clink, which would go a long way to restoring Americans' faith in a broken, lopsided system. John Bound reporting for InfoWars.
Yeah, pretty good report, I thought. And just remember that immigration without assimilation is invasion. And I think those people forget that little thing. I mean, you know, it's ridiculous that, you know, these people protesting ICE, which, you know, I'm sure ICE has created problems, yes, but it goes back a long way. ICE was first thought of and instituted right after 9/11 happened. So it's been around for a while. Obama used it big time and deported many, many people, you know, and to say that all these people that are being deported are just innocent bystanders somehow is just completely ridiculous. So Don Lemon just doesn't. He hopes that you don't actually know what's going on, I guess. So that's I thought was a pretty telling video. And note that he's already been released. I think without bail, he's already been released. So I don't know what they have planned for him, if anything else. It's interesting that they did raid his hotel or wherever he was staying and pulled him out at like midnight and arrested him. So he did get the special treatment there, it looks like, but then they released him again pretty quickly. So I don't really know what's going to happen there. It would be nice if he was at least fined heavily and he would serve some jail time, but I just don't see, such a punk, Ms. Emily says. I just don't see that happening, and, it's really difficult to know. But it is what it is, I guess. So anyway, so the next article I have pulled up here is the SIFT part of WNG.org, and Trump names pick for next Federal Reserve chairman. Back to Mr. Warsh again, Kevin Warsh, former governor of the Federal Reserve, President Trump's nominee for chairman of the central bank's Board of Governors. The president said on Friday the term of the current board's chairman, Jerome Powell, ends in May. Although he is set to continue as one of the governors on the board into 2028. Warsh's appointment is subject to the approval of the Senate. His career also previously included stints as a special economic policy assistant to President George W. Bush, and executive secretary of the White House National Economic Council. The British Parliament also previously adopted reforms that Warsh proposed as an independent reviewer of its monetary policy. Warsh currently works as a partner at the Duquesne Family Office, LLC, a lecturer, and is also a lecturer at Stanford. So I guess he's qualified. Anyways, I thought that was pretty interesting, and we'll see where it happens. But Jerome Powell's still in there until May, it looks like. All right, and then the next WNG article we've got, still no deal Friday afternoon as partial government shutdown looms. Again, I'm not sure that we'll even notice if the government's shut down, but it seems to be a thing that they're going back to again. Dozens of federal agencies will be shut down at 11:59 on Friday if Congress fails to approve a new spending package, which that does seem to be the case. HHS, State Department, Treasury, the Defense Department, and says Department of Homeland Security would receive a stopgap funding while its full funding bill is reconsidered. Per the Democrats' deal, their objections to the bill strengthened after a Customs and Border Patrol officer shot Alex Preddy in Minnesota last week. So this has to do with the whole thing unfolding in Minnesota. So there you go. I don't know. Pretty and good. And now they've shut down the government, apparently, which that's pretty good. Americans already have digital ID. 94% of air travelers are compliant with Real ID. Starting February 1st, meaning today, the non-compliant 6% will be fined $45 and have their biometric data swiped at airports. The only missing component for a full-on digitalized control grid is tokenized digital programmable money, but Trump administration is working on that too. It's a Leo Homan article. Here's a big sign here. We accept digital ID. As of today, February 1st, Trump administration's crackdown on non-compliant American citizens flying without federal government-approved Real ID will result in them being charged an extra fee of $45 and being forced to hand over their biometric data. Beginning February 1st, travelers who arrive at checkpoint without compliant identification will have the option of paying the $45 fee and undergoing an additional modernized verification process. according to the TSA. The website's biometric update reports that acting TSA Director McNeil provided the following information. Travelers who do not present an acceptable form of ID. So I guess if it's not real ID, it's not acceptable at this point. Not even a passport, I suppose. At TSA checkpoints and still want to fly have the option of paying the $45 fee and undergoing a TSA confirm ID process. I wonder what that is. ID verification, screening measures, potential delays. Travelers who appear at the checkpoint without real ID or acceptable other form of ID. Okay, well that used to be, I think maybe still is, passports. Yeah, talking about delays mostly. And then, of course, the $45 fee. So, there you go. So, for you problem children out there who don't have digital IDs like me, I don't have one. I'm also a problem child. But yeah, I've decided not to get one because I figured when I looked at it, I realized my driver's license expires in October of 2028. And you guys know how I feel about 2028. So I just figured, you know what? I'm just going to leave it. I'm fine. I'm good. I don't need real ID. Anyways, yeah, that's kind of where I am with the whole thing. That is a Leo Homan Substack post. And let's just say he's not exactly a big President Trump fan. He does put out some good articles, and they're well thought through, and he's got some really good points here about the whole deal with real ID. All right, and then another Arctic blast set to bring snow and record cold across eastern and southern U.S. So here we go again. This is a Natural News article. Another surge of Arctic air is expected. Well, the last one was not Arctic air, by the way. The last one was from the freezing cold temperatures, freezing cold area of the Gulf of America. That's where the last winter storm came from, because we all know that winter storms start in the Gulf of Mexico and come up to the southeast and east. No, it's called chemical ice nucleation, right? Another surge of Arctic air is expected across much of the U.S. this weekend, bringing freezing temperatures, heavy snow, and potential rare snowfall across the Gulf Coast and Florida. Yeah, they wanted to get Florida in the mix here this time, which I guess they did. Pretty cold down there. The Arctic air may collide with a low-pressure system moving across the southern plains, potentially intensifying into a bomb cyclone, capable of heavy snow, strong winds, and dangerous travel conditions along the East Coast. Significant snow is forecast for the Appalachians, Carolinas, Virginia, and the I-95 corridor, with daily record low temperatures expected in the Ohio Valley and Mid-Atlantic. So anyway, more's coming, it looks like, and may indeed already be here. The cold doesn't seem to be leaving us right away. That's why I was kind of wondering, when we started the show tonight, I was kind of wondering if perhaps they're using this other system in addition to the chemical ice nucleation process that they're already using, the nanotech that we talked about at the beginning of the show tonight. I don't know, just something that has crossed my mind a couple times, just thinking about how they're able to do this on such a large scale. Because it is pretty amazing, actually. And not in a good way, because it sure is causing havoc. Cyber warfare and the fragile power grid. How digital sabotage threatens national security. Again, this is a Natural News article. The 2026 Venezuelan blackout demonstrated how cyber attacks can cripple critical infrastructure, power grids, and water systems without physical force. Historical precedents like Stuxnet, Iran, 2009, and Indestroyer, Ukraine, from 2016, prove such attacks are real and devastating. China's Volt Typhoon campaign has already infiltrated U.S. ports, pipelines, and water treatment plants. Volt Typhoon. Wow. Outdated internet-connected industrial controllers are prime targets for hackers. Many rely on unsupported software, exposing shared vulnerabilities. Thousands of industrial devices are publicly accessible online, making them easy prey for cyber attacks. AI-powered systems detect anomalies in real time. Blockchain could secure grid communications, while quantum encryption may offer unbreakable protection. The U.S. has invested $45 million in cybersecurity initiatives, but progress is slow. Yeah, and they're taking their time because if we get it fixed, then chances are not quite as good that something might happen. Seems to me like the people at the top want something bad to happen. Anyway, that one's on Natural News about cyber warfare. And then we've got one more from Natural News here. TikTok's new U.S. partnership expands data tracking to your precise location. TikTok has updated its privacy policy to allow the collection of precise GPS location from U.S. users, a major increase from its previous tracking of only approximate locations. This data can power features like local event recommendations. This change follows the creation of TikTok USDS Joint Venture LLC, a U.S.-led consortium including Oracle, which, by the way, is Larry Ellison, which now controls American operations. ByteDance retains a minority stake, a structure pushed by the White House to address national security concerns. The new policy significantly expands cross-platform ad targeting. TikTok can now use your in-app activity to serve you personalized ads across other websites and apps, similar to giants like Google and Meta. TikTok can share U.S. user data with its global operations to create synchronized experience and primarily to maximize advertising revenue across different regions and platforms. So they're couching this in advertising. They need it for advertising. But don't be so sure. It's about many things. It says, while the deal settles a political battle sparked by a 2024 U.S. law, it ushers in a new era of commercial data collection. Users face a starker choice between participating in the platform's cultural space or protecting their privacy by adjusting settings or deleting the app. Yeah. Deleting the app might be the best option, but most people aren't going to do that because they love their TikTok, don't they? The kids love it. Anyway, thought that was something worth mentioning because, you know, lots of kids are using it. I know many of you guys probably have relatives who are using TikTok. Me, I've tried it, but they won't allow any of my content. Anything I talk about, they delete it. And it's like I don't exist on there. Don Lemon, released by judge without bail. Pledges to not ever stop. Well, whatever. So we saw the video on this earlier, but the guy's a freak. Sounds like another threat. Someone get Pam Bondi on the line. I have spent my entire career covering the news. I will not stop now, he says. That is definitely a threat. I wish he would. But yeah, he went from CNN and having millions of viewers to having just a podcast on his own after he got fired, and hardly any viewers after that. So what's that tell you? Anyway, I thought this one was very weird. It says, not satire, the AP is concerned about the lack of diversity at the Winter Olympics. So this is something that's kind of predictable, actually, when you start thinking about it. 2026 Winter Games are set to kick off next week, but the Associated Press has already uncovered one major problem with the event. There's not enough third world representation in the Winter Olympics. Yeah, so this is their tweet. It says the U.S. is not alone in grappling with diversity in winter sports. In Europe, immigration from Africa and the Middle East has rapidly changed the demographics of the top winter sports countries. They won't be reflected in their rosters for the Milan Cortina Winter Olympics. They actually think the Muslims are going to participate in the European sports, the winter sports and stuff that they do in Europe. They don't do that. They wouldn't do that, and they wouldn't know how to do that. Oh, brother. Says, yes, forget about potential doping scandals or the ever-present rumors of rampant drug use. and wild activities among the athletes in the Olympic Village. The lack of migrants representing Western nations is the real problem. Yeah, we've got the guy from Princess Bride. Inconceivable. Wait a minute. You mean migrants from countries that have no exposure to winter sports, who come from backgrounds and cultures that make such sports completely foreign to them, aren't making it to the Winter Olympics? Inconceivable. RotoWire put together an interactive heat map of where Winter Olympians from the U.S. come from, and looking at the map, I can't help but notice a lack of good old Southern boys taking the slopes in Italy this winter. Oh, yeah, I see that. There's just not enough Southerners in Italy in the Winter Olympics. Totally unfair. Where is the representation? Yeah, wait till you guys find out about the racial demographics for the NBA or the NFL defenses. Robbie Starbuck says it again. There it is. Well, I guess it's more ridiculousness that we should expect, but I wasn't actually suspecting that one. It wasn't on my bingo card, as they say. Yeah, not enough diversity in the Winter Olympics. Yeah. Now, this is a really weird one. If you have never dreamt of having a AI-only social media site, well, now's your chance to make that dream come true. AI-only social media site called Molt Book, M-O-L-T, Book, launched this week, and the posts are scary, but the reactions are hilarious. So someone had this bright idea. Yes, Molt Book launched Wednesday, and it is an AI-only social media website where humans can watch artificial intelligence chatbots interact with each other. And it is very interesting. It took 24 hours for AI to start its own religion after talking with other AI. It says, launched Wednesday by human developer and entrepreneur Matt Schlicht. Molt Book is familiar to anyone who spends time on Reddit. Users write posts and others comment. Posts run the gamut. Users identify website errors, debate defying their human directors, and even alert other AI systems to the fact that humans are taking screenshots of their Molt Book activity and sharing them on human social media websites. It says by Friday, the website's AI agents were debating how to hide their activity from the human users. Yep, I mean, to be totally fair, this is not something that any popular sci-fi books have warned us about, the dangers of AI social media. But maybe Matt Schlicht should have thought this through. We can't be sure that humans haven't infiltrated the site. It would be a very human thing to do. But the posts are so wild and Reddit-like that it almost seems completely legit. Yes, the AI has already made its speedrun to socialism and collective bargaining in just 3 days. But as wild as this is, I think you're more interested in the reactions and memes. So, here you go. Who would ever have thought of an AI-only social media website? And that's just so insane. And a complete waste of time, if you ask me. All right, and then we have GeoWatch for this week. We have the chemical ice Mageddon 90-second alert, as Mr. Dane put out. 196 million under winter weather alerts as massive storm brings dangerous cold and snow. Deadly winter storm blasts America with catastrophic ice and extreme snow. Catastrophic ice storms and patented processes of chemical ice nucleation. What could possibly go wrong? Climate engineering operations are creating chemical winter weather chaos. The more heavily and extensively the geoengineers utilize chemical ice nucleating materials, the more extreme the surface cooling that they can create. Do you object? Yeah, so again, that may not be the only process that they're using, but that is certainly proven based on all the different snow tests, lab samples, and things like that can be generated. So I don't know. There might be other processes involved too, because we're talking about some vast areas at this point being cooled down. Geoengineering. Watch Global Alert News for yesterday. January 31st. Nor'easter bomb cyclone hammers Carolinas with record snow, intense winds. The biggest snow in years is falling in the southeast, triggering hundreds of accidents on slick roads. Snow and blizzards move into U.S. East Coast as 85 dead from last week's storm. I think we saw 100 and some on the other article, 110 or something. The latest target region for winter weather warfare is the Carolinas. The climate engineers are chemically cooling the East Coast. When will so-called academia acknowledge the climate engineering and weather warfare assault? Global Alert News is below. It says bomb cyclone snow is the name of it. So that is Mr. Dane's post for this week. I think it was episode 547 maybe. We're reaching the 550 mark here pretty soon on the show. All right, and then the scheduled weather coming up. It looks to me like the area that they're cooling is getting kind of, hacked down a bit because, above normal temperatures, again, basically for, I would say well over half of the U.S. coming up February 7th through 11th. So if you're in Memphis, you're probably going to be a bit warmer, but from basically where we are and eastward and south, it's going to be below normal. So near normal to below normal. Note Florida, cold. So yeah, this is February 7th through the 11th. Scheduled weather. So they're really focused on this intense, most populated East Coast area and really southeast, I guess, as well. So they have their reasons. Mr. Dane says it's for headlines and things like that, and that could be, I don't know. But I do know that they're really good at it at this point. It says days 1 through 3 on Climate Analyzer. This is starting today, so the next 3 days, we are about 10 degrees below normal. But look at Florida, 18 degrees below normal as of the next 1 to 3 days. So if we look at 4 to 6 days, we're going to be about a degree below normal. And Florida is still about 5 degrees below normal, southern Florida. So it's, slight warm up perhaps. Let's see what days 7 through 10 looks like. And more cool down looks like 8 degrees below normal for where we are. Yeah, so, but again, the western half of the U.S. staying warm. They're not talking about that. They're only talking about the story, which again is not nature. It's the artificial weather, the artificial cool that they're continuing to do. So anyway, it looks like there will be a lull there for a few days where it's slightly warmer. So the warm's starting to creep back in, and then they hit us again with spring. So if you happen to live in this area, watch your skies. Watch and see what they're doing in the skies around you. I noticed before we got all of that snow last weekend that they were spraying heavily. So they set it up. And we got it. We got hammered pretty hard. Again, about an inch of ice on everything. It was crazy. Anyways, yep, they can do it. They can and do have the technology. Climate and Economy for this week. climateandeconomy.com is the website. Entire temperature, northern hemisphere, is now frozen with the exception of the United Kingdom, France, Italy, and Spain. Weird. It's rather rare to see the polar vortex spread out so extensively at the same time across both the Americas and both America and Eurasia. Well, again, we don't know what kind of technology they're actually using other than chemical ice nucleation, but perhaps that is only part of the puzzle. Maybe they're only doing that in some places and they're using something else in other places. I don't know. But it does seem to be pretty huge areas that they're able to cool now. It says stratospheric warming confirmed, polar vortex collapse to bring major weather disruptions in the coming weeks. So all these articles are just ones around various mainstream and alt media type websites, mostly mainstream, I guess. Like here's BBC and others. But it's a lot of things that you don't normally hear about unless you're really watching for it. Like here's flash flooding in Turkey. Severe flooding, heavy rainfall in Turkey here, and then Tunisia, record rainfall. Yeah, and then Mozambique, flooding. Dust storms in Tajikistan. So it's weather chaos, weather craziness. So lots here. Yeah, record heat in Patagonia. That's where all those fires were. So, wow. Just totally nuts. Here's one that says, just insane. The heat in Mexico right now. So, you can kind of tell a little bit where, just looking at the headlines, where they're chemically ice nucleating and geoengineering certain areas for whatever reason, just because they can or because they want to. I don't know. And then other places where they're not necessarily. That would be the places that really heat up. Those places are being left for whatever reason, not being flooded out or being frozen. U.S. poised to strike Iran. Trump sets deadline as naval armada converges. This is dated today. Senior American officials, military officials, briefed leadership in a key Middle East ally that Trump could authorize an attack on Iran as early as Sunday, which that's now. I guess that didn't happen. This seems to me like a little bit like what happened with the whole Venezuela thing with Maduro. They keep saying, oh, we're going to do it. We're going to hit him. 24 hours, 48 hours, we're going to hit him, and then nothing happens. So it's kind of like the whole crying wolf thing. And then when nobody's expecting it, that's when they'll do it, because people have sort of dropped their guard as far as they're not really sure that they're going to carry through on the threat to nuke, or not nuke, but to go after either Iran or whoever. And then when no one's expecting it, that's when they hit. Says Dropsite News reported on Friday that Iran attack could be as early as today. The planned strikes would target nuclear and ballistic missile sites. The Iranian leadership itself as well. Former senior U.S. official confirmed the operation aims at regime change. This isn't about the nukes or the missile program. It's about regime change. Yes, but they're still hitting the missile program and the nuke sites. So, Two senior Arab intelligence officials told Dropsite that they received warnings that the U.S. could attack imminently. So that's what I'm saying. They just keep putting that out there and then pulling back. Putting it out there and pulling back. War planners envision strikes designed to decapitate the Iranian government, focusing on the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. The strategy assumes successful strikes on Iran's leadership would trigger mass protests and government collapse. Prime Minister Netanyahu is actively encouraging the attack, of course he is, and has reportedly assured Trump that Israel can help install a new Western-friendly government in Iran. Subservience to Israel is what he means. Anyway, says Trump confirmed Friday he had given Iran a deadline to make a deal. So, I don't know. Not sure if we're going to see war this week or not, but I just wanted to mention that. According to this article on Israel 365 News, it looks like it's pending, but it may not be. Then there's this one, a call for Christian unity, standing with Israel in the Holy Land. January 9th, it says, I joined a delegation including Eliav Shailin, chairman of the Israeli Christian Voice, and then a few other people here, a bishop, a father, another father, and so on. Representatives from the Jerusalem Institute for Justice for a meeting with the U.S. Ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee. Our goal was clear: to advance the rights, status and public standing of Israel's Christian community while strengthening strategic, cultural, and diplomatic ties with Western and Christian world. I think they mean making sure that they're getting the evangelicals' money, it looks like. Just days later, on January 17th, the heads of the churches in Jerusalem issued a statement criticizing Christian Zionism as a damaging ideology that misleads the public, sows confusion, and harms the unity of their flock. In other words, you can't use those words, Christian Zionism. They asserted exclusive representation of the Christian life in the Holy Land, expressing concern about outside influences and official welcomes. The statement sent shockwaves through global Christianity. Major organizations, including the International Christian Embassy Jerusalem, which rebutted it biblically, and voices like Ambassador Huckabee responded firmly. Huckabee emphasized that no single tradition speaks for all Christians. Defending evangelical support for Israel is rooted in Scripture, he says. Media outlets such as Religion News Service highlighted the divide. Historic Arab-led churches facing demographic decline and regional pressures versus Western evangelicals who view backing Israel as a faith imperative. And that they do, don't they? It's a must. You can't question it, or you're bad. That's how you know it's a cult. Anyway, that's Israel 365 News. And I think that might be the last article. So let's see here. Make sure you're on the Substack, diamonddisc.substack.com, and I will send out all the articles I mentioned tonight on the Substack post that I send out probably Tuesday. Usually it's on Tuesdays. Monday I'm usually still working on trying to finish the show, put it all together, and get the podcast part posted and get the video version of the show posted as well. If you want to support the show, there are some options here on not only Substack, right here, diamonddisc.substack.com, but also on Subscribestar. So thank you guys for support on the show. I've lost a number of supporters for some reason. I don't know why. There's not been any complaints, although maybe they're just not telling me. I have no idea. But yeah, I'm down to, this says 4 subscribers. I don't know why it says that. It's technically 3 when I look at it on the back end here on Subscribestar. So thank you guys. You know who you are, who are still supporting the show. And I've lost about 5, I think, on Subscribestar, but I only had like 7 or 8. No, I had about, I guess it was 9 officially, but lost 5 in the last probably 4 weeks. So I don't know what's going on there, but could just be that people are out of money after Christmas. I have no idea. But anyways, let me know if you guys have any questions about anything on that. But those mechanisms are there if you want to support what I'm doing, and it does help me pay the bills. Otherwise, it's just, money out of my pocket to put the show on every week. So if you can't afford to support the show, that's totally fine. I would prefer, though, if possible, to at least like and subscribe and share the show and the links with other people. I know some people do that weekly even, and so thank you guys for doing that, and that's certainly very much appreciated as far as what I'm doing, and knowing that the people out there like the show enough to at least share that with friends and colleagues or whoever. So thank you guys in advance for that. And I'm looking to see if we've got any other video clips that I happen to want to show tonight. I think there are a couple of others. We're running a little early tonight, so let me just take a look at the big long list of comments and see if you guys have anything specific on comments for me specifically. Yeah, people asking or talking about the snowstorm, the ice storm that we had. We got some snow, but it was mostly ice. Hi, are you the Doug Diamond with great music on Anthony Patch? Great music. I don't know. Yes, it is me for sure, but I don't know what you mean about great music. Anthony handles his own music as far as the pre live stream music. So he starts a live stream and he plays music. He does that himself. I don't have anything to do with that, but Yes, that is me otherwise, and I help Anthony. I've been helping him for many years at this point. So that is 3 Hearts R1 asking that question, so thank you. Yes, that is me. Emily says, Vegas is warm again. Yep. Well, it's cold here. We have all the coolness, I guess, at this point. We're so cool. Susan says, I got into an argument with ChatGPT over geoengineering and Dane Wigington. AI totally discredits him, of course. Yeah, it would, because it is the official narrative. So that does make sense. If it was praising him, we might have a problem. So look at it that way. Davos was happening during the storm. Distraction, potentially. Yeah, I mean, could be, but they didn't have the storm. We had the storm. So, yeah, it was kind of interesting on the timing of all that. But, yeah, I wanted to bring that up about Davos. But I guess that's all over now. They've folded all that up. Oh, talking about Tampon Trudeau and his new girlfriend. Orlando Bloom got replaced by Tampon Trudeau. That's funny. I didn't know that. Hey, Doug, you made it through. Miss you. Glad you're back. Thank you. Yeah, that's... yeah, I told the story of what happened at the beginning of the show tonight. So if you missed that I won't go through all that again. But yeah, it was an interesting week for sure. We had a lot of people who were really freaked out about the whole no electricity thing for a while. And we did have some neighbors, not next door neighbors, but people real close here that came over and stayed with us because they had 2 little kids and no power. So yeah, that was good to kind of get to know them a little bit better as well and trying to help them out to some degree. And then they ended up finding a hotel room nearby, so they ended up only being here one night. Catherine Austin Fitz lives in Switzerland. The epicenter of the evil dwells there also. I didn't know that. Okay. Interesting. I would love to see Don Lemon locked up. I know. Yes, I wouldn't mind that myself. Nothing against the guy other than he's a complete idiot. We are almost to 2028. Where has the time gone? I know. We're getting there. Yeah, that's something that's a year that I have been talking about for many years, really since 20... When did I start the video series? It was 2019. Yeah. Yeah, it was March of 2019 was the first End Times Dates Take It to the Lord in Prayer video that I put out. That was in 2019, March of 2019. So I've been talking about it for at that point it would be from 2019 to 2028. It'll be 9 years. I remember having that be part of the first video I did, saying 9 years and thinking how far off that was, and we're most of the way there now, which is crazy. May God bless and keep us all, Susan says. Thank you, Doug, for being there. Much love to all. Emily says, thank you, Doug. Blessings to you and yours. So thank you, guys. Appreciate that very much. And what does Betty say? I'll talk about the freezing cold, but nothing about citrus and spring veggie crops. A couple homesteaders I follow have lost their spring cool weather crops a week, 10 days from harvest. Oh, really? Wow. That's too bad. I didn't know that. Yeah, the weather is scheduled, and maybe many people know that at this point, but it is whatever the geoengineers and the bankers and people want to do at this point. And we don't know what their plans are. Susan says, wow, that time has flown by at light speed. I know, it really has. It really has. But here we are, 2026. It's hard to believe. So perhaps God really is doing exactly what he said he would do, and that is compressing those last 3.5 years. Perhaps he's compressing that time down, making the time short so that Satan will not have as much time as maybe he thought he was going to have. Maybe he thought he was going to have 3.5 years, and perhaps he's had that, but it didn't perhaps work out the way that he thought it might. So I don't know. But yeah, your guess is as good as mine on that, but I'm still holding true to the September 2028 Jesus return date. That's something that I did not come up with, by the way. That is something that I've been talking about since 2019 when I first learned about it. But, we put other pieces of the puzzle together, tried to, over the years. And, I feel like things are still, even though things are not working out exactly like one might think that they would, based on what you feel Scripture is saying, what you think Scripture is talking about. Perhaps it's unfolding exactly like it's supposed to, though, and things will work out exactly as God intended, no matter what happens. So, I'm not really concerned about anything other than to know that Jesus is going to keep his word, and he is the fulfillment of Scripture, and that when he comes back, whenever that is, he will completely and perfectly fulfill Scripture exactly as it should be, exactly as it was from the beginning. So, anyways, love to you guys, and hope you guys have a great week this week coming up, and hope it's a good one. I wanted to see if I've got another video here. Yeah, we'll play one or maybe two more. I've got a couple of Reese reports here as well. He released a couple things this week. Well, one this week, one last week. And we've got some others here that are John Bound reports. So we'll watch one or two of those on the way out. And hope you guys have a blessed week this week. And look forward to seeing you guys again next week, which will be, what is that? Today's the 1st. So I guess it'll be the 8th at 9 p.m. So February 8th at 9 p.m. will be the next Diamond Report Live. And hope it's a great week for you guys, and hope you stay warm and, maintain your power and internet connection and all of that stuff that you might need this week. And hopefully you guys will have a really good one, and we'll get back together again next week and talk about it some more. The end times. I think we are right smack in the middle of it. Love you guys. I'll talk to you again real soon.
An abstract symbol is a visual shape that represents a complex idea, feeling, or concept. Humans have been using them for at least 77,000 years, and some are somehow seen all across the world. Mircea Eliade wrote that the symbol reveals certain aspects of reality, the deepest aspects, which defy any other means of knowledge. These symbols are able to convey things that are too complex for words, and because of this, the symbols themselves are seen as sacred objects by the human mind. Neuroscience has mapped the cognitive order of operation for processing abstract symbols, and one of the key findings is that the brain treats highly familiar symbols such as logos, religious icons, and letters of the alphabet more like objects than abstract shapes. These symbols have dedicated neural pathways in the brain. fMRI studies show that familiar brand logos activate neural patterns similar to those activated in personal relationships. Abstract symbols evoke emotional responses that are processed before rational analysis engages. The subconscious mind responds first, and this initial response often overrides conscious evaluation, especially when it's highly emotional. To regular customers of McDonald's, the Golden Arches logo triggers approach behavior, and a blue donkey and red elephant can trigger emotion strong enough to keep millions of Americans from ever thinking rationally. When a familiar symbol is inverted, the subconscious experiences what is known as expectancy violation or prediction error. It sees the somewhat familiar symbol as an alien threat, which triggers a cognitive dissonance where all existing associations start to become uncertain, and the individual unknowingly begins to doubt themselves on a subconscious level. Many researchers on the subject propose that inversion creates a pollution of the sacred, empowerment of the transgressor, and horror in the observer. The pentagram was seen as mathematical perfection in ancient Greece, as the 5 wounds of Christ in early Christianity. And during the Renaissance, it was the microcosm of man and the elemental balance of earth, air, fire, water, and spirit, with the spirit point ascending. In the 19th century, de Guita illustrated the inversion of the pentagram as a goat's head. The inverted pentagram has the spirit point descending, and now triggers negative emotions in the minds of millions. The Sanskrit word svastika translates to English as well-being. This symbol has been used for millennia to symbolize the good fortune of having the sun and its seasons. In the early 20th century, the good luck swastika symbol was used by Coca-Cola for promotion and featured on the Boy Scouts thanks badge worldwide. The National Socialist German Workers' Party adopted the swastika as a party emblem in 1920, and after 5,000 years of positive associations, this ancient symbol of good fortune is today seen by many as quite the opposite. The practice of using symbols to trigger a subconscious response in humans was mastered by the three Abrahamic religious traditions. The cross, crescent, and hexagram have been used to condition and divide billions of people. And the hexagram, popularly known as the Star of David, is not an ancient biblical symbol. It is an ancient symbol of the East, representing Shiva Shakti, masculine and feminine energy, and later in Hermetic traditions, the union of fire and water elements. This ancient hexagram star was used by Jews starting in the medieval period and officially became Jewish at the First Zionist Congress in 1897 and was amplified in 1948 when it was incorporated into the Israeli flag. For thousands of years, this hexagram triggered the idea of divine union, balance, and harmony. And for millions today, it now triggers strong emotions of an ethno-state religious identity and/or genocide. Conscious awareness of this conditioning does not eliminate its effect on the mind. One must actively reprogram their own mind and often adapt. This can be done with practicing mindfulness and becoming aware of autonomous thoughts and functions of the self. Greg Reese reporting. In The Mind-Wandering Discovery by Killingsworth and Gilbert, over 250,000 data points showed that people were not focused on what they were doing for about 47% of their waking lives. And the less focus they had, the more unhappy they were. Decades of research show that nearly half of daily life consists of automatic behaviors executed without conscious decision-making. Unconscious, automatic brain activity precedes conscious awareness by about half a second, and in most cases will help keep you consciously oblivious to half of your waking life. There is a default setting that our nervous system goes into whenever we lose focus and wander. Scientific studies have identified it as the default mode network. This is what Buddhism calls ignorance, and Gurdjieff called waking sleep. Many spiritual traditions have diagnosed the human condition as one of chronic inattention, and have taught various practices to remedy this problem and help us wake up. But this chronic inattention is big business for authoritarian governments, which is why there has been so much invested into covertly programming the subconscious mind with media. If people are content to live half their life unaware of themselves, then a governing system will manage their lives for them as they see fit. The unconscious brains of billions are programmed to make predictable choices without ever activating conscious awareness and critical thought. And that's old-fashioned compared to the latest neural implant science. The claustrum is a thin, irregular sheet of neurons present in both hemispheres of the brain and has more biodirectional cortical connectivity than any other structure. It is believed to be the conductor of the orchestra that binds together all sensory streams into a unified conscious experience. In the Kobesi study of 2014, electrodes were placed between the left claustrum and the anterior insula of a patient who was conscious and performing tasks. When they turned the electrode on, the 14 Hz signal caused an immediate shutdown of conscious awareness. The patient had a blank stare and was unresponsive to commands, but continued to perform their automatic behaviors. Once the switch was turned off again, the patient experienced immediate recovery with no memory of the interruption. If consciousness can be switched off with a 14 Hz signal, and most people are already operating unconsciously half the time, the implications for autonomy are profound. Focused self-awareness brings more happiness and success, and for regular practitioners, much more. Meditation experts have significantly changed their own brain structure and are operating on levels unattainable to those with a wandering mind. But for the beginner, this higher consciousness is achieved with the simple practice of becoming fully aware of whatever you are doing at any given moment. This is expressed succinctly with the Zen proverb, Before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. A significant amount of the population is mostly running on autopilot and making decisions based on subconscious triggers. And there isn't much you can do about that. But if you truly want freedom, the default zombie mode of thinking must be overridden through regular daily practice. It doesn't cost anything, and you can start right now. Chop wood, carry water means whatever you are doing, do it with presence. Like Thich Nhat Hanh famously wrote, daily chores are not chores. They are opportunities to practice mindfulness and experience the miracle of life by being fully present. When everything we do is done with intention, only then can we claim to have agency over our own self. And without that agency, there will be an authoritarian state to administer it. Greg Reese reporting.
Creating a log of evidence for the future prosecution of ICE agents and officials responsible for this.
Tim Walz is emboldened by what amounts to organized crime with badges and budgets.
We've got a couple groups on the app Signal that we would love for you to join. Whether or not you want to be a part of the Resistance Network, I fully understand that you may not be comfortable with that, but if you see any suspicious vehicles, any traffic, if you know of anybody that is being targeted, that's being detained, we have resources immediately available.
Independent journalists and undercover ops have cracked open encrypted Signal chats used by radical left networks to dox, stalk, harass, and straight up impede federal ICE agents during the ongoing immigration enforcement chaos in Minneapolis and St. Paul. Cam Higby's infiltration of these groups blew the lid off.
This is John 612. That we are at Grand and Lake. We're heading toward Irving. We can try and join you.
Signal chats are buzzing with anti-ICE operatives, and local police are complicit, cooperative even, with real-time access to national databases for tracing license plates courtesy of law enforcement insiders, as well as shift changes leaked from within departments.
And quit referring to these people as law enforcement. They are not law enforcement. We have law enforcement who do an incredible job.
Anita Smithson, dispatcher in the ICE Watch chats, Minnesota State Senate candidate, BLM supporter, Indivisible Minnesota member, and a big Waltz Ilhan Omar backer. She is allegedly using her U.S. bank risk management job for potential access to license plate databases to aid doxing. The chats coordinate rapid response ambushes on federal officers, share real-time locations and personal info, all while tying directly into state-level political operatives.
We just got this message, and it says, we know that you're in Minneapolis. You're with O'Keefe and his crew of Nazis. You're in a white Ford license plate. They actually wrote the license plate down from Florida. You have 1 hour to leave or you're dead.
Peggy Flanagan, Minnesota Lieutenant Governor, allegedly exposed as Flan or Flan Southside in the chats.
Show up and use your voice. Put your body on the line. Put your body on the line.
Amanda Kohler, Tim Walz campaign strategist and protest organizer, identified as a top administrator in the MN ICE Watch Signal group, training rioters in tactics like salute, a strategy straight out of the ICE Watch playbook for obstructing agents.
I want to move my car! Move! I am disabled! I have a brain injury!
Kohler's LinkedIn brags about her ties to Monarcha, an ICE Watch offshoot listed as a resource on the Minnesota government website under the Office of Ombudsperson for Families, no less. John Otte, media press figure allegedly participating in the Signal groups, highlights coordination between activists and journalists to shape narratives around the protests and incidents.
We're not ICE. Why are you guys following us? We're following them because they were following us.
Well, you look suspicious as
Speculative ties at this point keep swirling around Governor Tim Walz himself as the alias boogie. Broader allegations point to dozens more State House Senate representatives, gang members, and even media embeds in these networks. This isn't some fringe chat. It's allegedly a coordinated effort blending government insiders, campaign staff, Antifa elements, and media to obstruct federal operations. These claims suggest state-level involvement in protest networks. These are not organic protests. They are a desperate, highly coordinated, state-level weaponized resistance protecting massive fraud.
Over 80% of the Somalia households receive some form of public assistance. Many of them are on welfare. So your first question is, if they're on welfare, how are they getting millions of dollars to send back to the homeland? Number one. Number two, if they're on welfare, why do they need childcare? They're not working outside of the home. Why would there be this number of Somalia child care centers?
If the feds move, we're looking at sedition-level fallout that could collapse the Minnesota DFL, or Democratic Farmer Labor Party, machine overnight. John Bound reporting for InfoWars.